Hey everyone, it's Alex, and I am here with my video for the nominations of the 43rd Annual Saturn Awards. Now, the Saturn Awards are a unique award show because they are designed to honor certain genres of film and television, namely science fiction, fantasy, horror, action, adventure, and thriller. Mainly because those types of genres aren't always acknowledged at award shows like the Oscars and the Emmys. Of course, not everything from those genres is worthy of Oscar or Emmy attention, and sometimes those genres do get in at those award shows, but this is a show that's designed to honor those genres nonetheless with the best of what they got each year. And the Saturn Awards have been going on since 1972, I believe. There's been like a couple of years here and there where they either had no awards or where they combined like 2 years worth of movies and TV into 1 year for an award show. But they've been pretty much consistent since the early 70s. And if you've never heard of the Saturn Awards, that may be due to the fact that even though they have been around since the 1970s, they have never been broadcast on television. And I don't even know if they do like a live stream on YouTube or anywhere else on the internet. But they have a pretty long time in between announcing the nominations and the ceremony itself. The nominations actually came out back in late February, but the award show itself isn't until June 28th. So therefore there's a lot of time in between for me to make a video. So what I'm going to do, like I do with pretty much any other award show video I make, is I'm going to go over the nominees without any commentary on what I like and don't like, and then once I get through all the nominees, then I'm going to break down most of the categories, at least the ones I know I can comment on from what I've seen, and then give my thoughts on what's good and what's bad about the nominations and what I feel got snubbed. And so the way the Saturn Awards works is that there are 3 categories of nominations: DVD, television, and film. There's a lot for me to get through, so let's get started right now. Here are the nominations for the 43rd Saturn Awards, beginning with the DVD categories. Best DVD Blu-ray Release: Dog Eat Dog, The Girl, The Lobster, The Man Who Knew Infinity, Tales of Halloween, The Wailing. Best DVD Blu-ray Television Release: Banshee, The Final Season, Hannibal, The Complete Series Collection, Mr. Robot, Season 2.0, Salem's Lot, Star Trek, The Animated Series, Versailles, Season 1. Best DVD Blu-ray Special Edition Release: Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Limited Edition, The Hills Have Eyes, Limited Edition, The Iron Giant, Signature Edition, Mad Max Fury Road, Black and Chrome Edition, Phantasm, Remastered, Raising Cain. Best DVD Blu-ray Classic Film Release: Destiny, Donovan's Brain, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, GOG 3D, It Came from Outer Space, The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, Time After Time. Best DVD Blu-ray Collection: Buster Keaton Shorts Collection, 1917 to 23, Frankenstein Complete Legacy Collection, Herschel Gordon Lewis Feast, Marx Brothers Silver Screen Collection, Pioneers of African American Cinema, The Wolfman Complete Legacy Collection. And now onto the television categories. Best Young Actor or Actress on Television: KJ Apa, Riverdale, Millie Bobby Brown, Stranger Things, Max Charles, The Strain, Alicia Debnam Carey, Fear the Walking Dead, Lorenzo James Henry, Fear the Walking Dead, Chandler Riggs, The Walking Dead. Best Supporting Actor on Television: Lyndon Ashby, Teen Wolf, Mehcad Brooks, Supergirl, Kit Harington, Game of Thrones, Ed Harris, Westworld, Lee Majors, Ash vs. Evil Dead, Norman Reedus, The Walking Dead, Jeffrey Wright, Westworld. Best Supporting Actress on Television: Kathy Bates, American Horror Story Roanoke. Denai Guerrera, The Walking Dead. Melissa McBride, The Walking Dead. Tandy Newton, Westworld. Candace Patton, The Flash. Adina Porter, American Horror Story Roanoke. Evan Rachel Wood, Westworld. Best Actor on Television. Bruce Campbell, Ash vs. Evil Dead. Mike Coulter, Luke Cage. Charlie Cox, Daredevil. Grant Gustin, The Flash. Sam Heughan, Outlander. Freddie Highmore, Bates Motel. Andrew Lincoln, The Walking Dead. Best Actress on Television. Melissa Benoist, Supergirl. Katrina Balfe, Outlander. Kim Dickens, Fear the Walking Dead. Vera Farmiga, Bates Motel. Lena Headey, Game of Thrones. Sarah Paulson, American Horror Story Roanoke. Winona Ryder, Stranger Things. Best Guest Performer on Television. Ian Bohen, Teen Wolf. Tyler Hoechlin, Supergirl. Anthony Hopkins, Westworld. Leslie Jordan, American Horror Story Roanoke. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, The Walking Dead. Dominique Pignon, Outlander. Best Presentation on Television, basically best TV movie or miniseries. Channel Zero. Doctor Who, The Return of Dr. Mysterio. 11/22/63. Mars, The Night Manager. Rats. Best Animated Series or Film on Television. BoJack Horseman. Family Guy. The Little Prince. The Simpsons. Star Wars Rebels. Troll Hunters. Best New Media Television Series. Bosch. Daredevil. Luke Cage. The Man in the High Castle. A Series of Unfortunate Events. Stranger Things. Basically, best new media television series is best series on a streaming platform like Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu. Best superhero television series. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Arrow, The Flash, Gotham, Legion, Supergirl. Best action or thriller television series. Animal Kingdom, Bates Motel, Designated Survivor, The Librarians, Mr. Robot, Riverdale, Underground. Best fantasy television series. Beyond, Game of Thrones, The Good Place, Lucifer, The Magicians, Outlander, Preacher. Best horror television series. American Horror Story Roanoke, Ash vs. Evil Dead, The Exorcist, Fear the Walking Dead, Teen Wolf, The Vampire Diaries, The Walking Dead. Best science fiction television series. Colony, The Expanse, Falling Water, Incorporated, The 100, Timeless, Westworld. And now onto the film categories. Best costume design. Colleen Atwood, Alice Through the Looking Glass. Joanna Johnston, The BFG. Alexandra Byrne, Doctor Strange. Colleen Atwood, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Sang Young Jo, The Handmaiden. David Crossman and Glyn DeLoyne, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Best Film Editing. Joe Walker, Arrival. Michael Kahn, The BFG. Jeffrey Ford and Matthew Schmidt, Captain America Civil War. Mark Levolsi, The Jungle Book. John Gilroy, Colin Goody, and Jabez Olsen, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Stephen Grube, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Best Makeup. Jeremy Woodhead, Doctor Strange. Nikki Knowles, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Amy Byrne, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Monica Huppert and Joel Harlow, Star Trek Beyond. Alan Apone, Joanne McNeil, and Marta Rogero, Suicide Squad. Charles Carter, Rita Sikazi, and Rosalina da Silva, X-Men Apocalypse. Best Music, John Williams, The BFG, Michael Giacchino, Doctor Strange, James Newton Howard, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Justin Hurwitz, La La Land, Thomas Newman, Passengers, Michael Giacchino, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Best Production Design, Rick Carter and Robert Stromberg, The BFG, Owen Patterson, Captain America Civil War, Charles Wood, Doctor Strange, Stuart Craig, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Guy Hendricks Diaz, Passengers, Doug Chang and Neil Lamont, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Best Special Effects, Lewis Morin and Ryle Cosgrove, Arrival, Joe Letteri and Joel Wist, The BFG, Stefan Soretti, Richard Bluff, Vincent Sorelli, and Paul Corbold, Doctor Strange, Tim Burke, Christian Mantz, and David Watkins, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Robert Legato, Adam Valdez, Andrew R. Jones, and Dan Lemon, The Jungle Book, John Knoll, Mohan Leo, Hal Hickel, and Neil Corbold, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Best Screenplay, Eric Heiserer, Arrival, Melissa Matheson, The BFG, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, Deadpool, John Spates, Scott Derrickson, and C. Robert Cargill, Doctor Strange, Taylor Sheridan, Hell or High Water, Chris Weitz and Tony Gilroy, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Best Young Actor or Actress, Ruby Barnhill, The BFG, Julian Dennison, Hunt for the Wilderpeople, Tom Holland, Captain America Civil War, Louis McDougall, A Monster Calls, Neil Setti, The Jungle Book, Anya Taylor-Joy, The Witch. Best Supporting Actor, Chadwick Boseman, Captain America Civil War, Dan Fogler, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, John Goodman, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Diego Luna, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Zachary Quinto, Star Trek Beyond, Christopher Walken, The Jungle Book. Best Supporting Actress, Betty Buckley, Split, Bryce Dallas Howard, Gold, Scarlett Johansson, Captain America Civil War, Kate McKinnon, Ghostbusters, Margot Robbie, Suicide Squad, Tilda Swinton, Doctor Strange. Best Actor, Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, Chris Evans, Captain America Civil War, Matthew McConaughey, Gold, Chris Pine, Star Trek Beyond, Chris Pratt, Passengers, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, Mark Rylance, The BFG. Best Actress, Amy Adams, Arrival, Emily Blunt, The Girl on the Train, Taraji P. Henson, Hidden Figures, Felicity Jones, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Jennifer Lawrence, Passengers, Nargis Rashidi, Under the Shadow, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Best Director, Denis Villeneuve, Arrival, Steven Spielberg, The BFG, Anthony Russo and Joe Russo, Captain America Civil War, Scott Derrickson, Doctor Strange, Jon Favreau, The Jungle Book, Gareth Edwards, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Bryan Singer, X-Men Apocalypse. Best Animated Film, Finding Dory, Kingsglaive Final Fantasy XV, Moana, Sing, Trolls, Zootopia. Best International Film. Now this refers to both foreign language films and English language films made outside the United States. Elle, The Handmaiden, In Order of Disappearance, The Mermaid, Shin Godzilla, Under the Shadow. Best Independent Film, Eye in the Sky, Hunt for the Wilderpeople, La La Land, Lion, The Ones Below, Remember. Best Comic Book Film, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Captain America Civil War, Deadpool, Doctor Strange, Suicide Squad, X-Men Apocalypse. Best Action or Adventure Film, Allied, Gold, Hacksaw Ridge, Hidden Figures, The Legend of Tarzan, The Magnificent Seven, The Nice Guys. Best Fantasy Film, The BFG, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Ghostbusters, The Jungle Book, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, A Monster Calls, Pete's Dragon. Best Horror Film, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, The Conjuring 2, Demon, Don't Breathe, Ouija Origin of Evil, Train to Busan, The Witch. Best Thriller Film, The Accountant, The Girl on the Train, Hell or High Water, Jason Bourne, The Shallows, Split, 10 Cloverfield Lane. And finally, Best Science Fiction Film, Arrival, Independence Day Resurgence, Midnight Special, Passengers, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Star Trek Beyond. And those are the nominations for the 43rd Annual Saturn Awards. So what do I think? Let's dive right into these nominees. I can't really comment too much about the DVD categories because many of them are films that I do not own or have never even heard of. Two of the films from Best DVD Blu-ray Release were films I saw last year, The Lobster and The Man Who Knew Infinity. The Lobster, it's an alright film. I didn't love it as much as other people did. I think it's a little overrated. And it's a very weird movie. If you don't like weird movies, then you're not going to like The Lobster. But it's worth seeing for Colin Farrell's fantastic performance and the beautiful cinematography. The Man Who Knew Infinity, that's a very solid film too. Not like one of the best films ever, but it's a good rental film starring Dev Patel and Jeremy Irons, based on a true story of a mathematician from India. Although I noticed for Best DVD Blu-ray Television Release, they include recent shows as well as older shows, such as Star Trek The Animated Series and Salem's Lot, which is actually a mini-series that's an adaptation of Stephen King's novel. Never even heard of Versailles. I'm assuming it's about King Louis XIV of France. I've heard the Mad Max Fury Road Black and Chrome edition is really cool, but I don't own that. That's all I can really say about the DVD categories. As for television, there's not really much I can say because admittedly many of these shows are not shows that I watch. Not that I don't like them, but there's just so much on TV nowadays that I don't have enough time to watch it, and I'm more into film than television. There are some shows that are on my radar, like Stranger Things. I've said again and again I plan to watch that show, and I still do, but other things have just gotten in the way of me doing so, but I've heard nothing but great things about it. Given that this is about science fiction, fantasy, horror, I'm not surprised to see shows like American Horror Story, Roanoke, Game of Thrones, Westworld, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead dominating here. Although I'm surprised to see Anthony Hopkins nominated as a guest performer for Westworld when I've heard he's pretty much in every episode, but maybe his screen time is limited per episode. I don't know because I haven't seen the show because I don't have HBO, but if anyone who's watching this video has seen Westworld, let me know in the comment section below if Anthony Hopkins is really qualified enough to be considered a guest nominee here. As of right now, he's still nominated in this category. I don't believe he's been removed or put into a different category. For Best Presentation on Television, I have seen two of the contenders. I saw 11/22/63, which is a mini-series adaptation of the Stephen King novel. Very good mini-series. I wouldn't say it's as good as the book. The mini-series made some major changes from the book. Some of them worked well, others didn't. I obviously can't talk too much about it because then I would have to give away major spoilers. But if you have not seen the miniseries or not read the book, I suggest you do so. And even if you're not a fan of Stephen King, I think 11/22/63 is a book or miniseries you might enjoy because while there are some supernatural elements in it, like time travel, this doesn't involve horror or gore or anything that he's most well known for. So this isn't like The Shining or Carrie or Misery or The Stand, or, it's not like one of those books or movies. And The Night Manager, that was an excellent miniseries starring Tom Hiddleston and Olivia Colman and Hugh Laurie. Absolutely fantastic. And that's based on a book by the iconic spy author John le Carré. I've never read the book, but I've heard they made some changes to it since the book was written in 1990, and they made some changes into it to have it be set in the modern day. But it's an excellent miniseries. If you want to see Tom Hiddleston do something outside the Marvel Cinematic Universe, watch The Night Manager. You'll love him in it. And if you like seeing Hugh Laurie in anything, watch him in that because he's just fantastic. For Best Animated Series, I can't really say too much. I've heard of all these series and The Little Prince, which is a Netflix movie, but I haven't seen any of them. For all the other series on here, I can't really say too much because, again, I don't watch too many of them, or really any of them. Stranger Things, like I mentioned, I want to watch. A series of Unfortunate Events, which is also on Netflix, I hope to watch. I have a few of the books. I collected some of the books when I was in elementary school, but sadly I never ended up reading them. I know all the books have been out for a while now, so probably what I might do is I might buy the whole box set of the books off of Amazon and just read them all and then watch the show. I've heard Neil Patrick Harris is incredible in it as Count Olaf. Alright, now on to the film categories. For Best Costume Design. This looks like a pretty solid list. Alice Through the Looking Glass, that was not a good movie, but admittedly the costume design was quite good in it. I just wish the movie itself were better. BFG, good costumes. I didn't see Doctor Strange, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Really good costumes, and of course that won the Oscar for Best Costume Design. In a surprise move, actually, because most people thought it would go to either Jackie or La La Land at the Oscars. The Handmaiden I did not see, but from the trailer and the still photos I've seen, the costumes look really good. And Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, good costumes. As for snubs, I guess maybe Star Trek Beyond would have been nice to see in here, but, I can't really complain too much. For Best Film Editing, Arrival, very good. The BFG, alright. Haven't seen Captain America Civil War, The Jungle Book, definitely. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, definitely. 10 Cloverfield Lane, definitely. Pretty good selection. Others that could have been in here were Hacksaw Ridge, which won the Oscar for Best Film Editing. La La Land had some fantastic film editing. Moonlight, which didn't get any nominations here, although I didn't really expect it to, but it's a shame it couldn't have at least gotten an independent film nomination and a film editing nomination here, because that had phenomenal editing. Hell or High Water had phenomenal editing. Star Trek Beyond also had great editing. So those are just my shout-outs there of other contenders that were sadly overlooked. For Best Makeup, looks pretty good for the most part. Fantastic Beasts definitely deserves to be in here. Rogue One, definitely. Star Trek Beyond, absolutely, especially with the prosthetic makeup that they used on Idris Elba and Sofia Boutella, particularly for Idris Elba since he was completely unrecognizable. And Suicide Squad, which controversially won the Oscar and didn't deserve to, in my opinion. Yes, the makeup in that was good, particularly the prosthetics for Killer Croc, but overall the makeup was mostly tattoos and face paint in the case of the Joker. So, and tattoos and face paint, in my opinion, are not enough to win an Oscar for Best Makeup, and I hope that the Saturn Awards don't use that as an excuse either. Although the interesting thing is that this is a completely different makeup team from the team that won at the Oscars. So I'm not sure where the difference is between the Saturn Awards and the Oscars in determining who the makeup artists are for this, but Oh well. I'm just hoping at least Star Trek Beyond will win here, unlike at the Oscars where it should have won. As for films that were snubbed here, I'm very surprised Swiss Army Man did not get nominated here, because I know Swiss Army Man is a very polarizing movie. Some think it was one of the absolute best movies of 2016. Others think it was one of the absolute worst. But there's two things in it that you can't deny are fantastic. One being the performances of Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe. I'll talk more about that later. And the other being the makeup, particularly the makeup used to make Daniel Radcliffe look all pasty and clammy as a corpse. And my God, did it look really effective. I just thought it was some of the best movie makeup I had seen in 2016, and I was really sad when it didn't get considered eligible for the Oscars, and I was hoping they might make up for it and nominate it here, but sadly that's not the case. And also Hacksaw Ridge, I'm surprised didn't get nominated here, because it had some very great makeup, particularly in the battle sequences in the second half of the film, just with all the dirt and the grime on their faces, as well as all the injuries that the soldiers suffered during the battle. Best music, La La Land and Rogue One, I'm very glad to see in here. Fantastic Beasts, it was alright. Passengers, good but not very memorable. The BFG, you know, it's good. John Williams scores are always good, but not very memorable. There's a lot of big snubs in here. Moonlight could have gotten a nomination here because that had a fantastic score, one of the best scores of 2016. Several animated films from last year could have been nominated here. Zootopia, Kubo and the Two Strings, Moana, all three of those films had fantastic scores. Arrival, you know, that score was sadly disqualified from the Oscars because apparently it was not original enough, but I don't think the Saturn Awards have that strong of an originality requirement. If they do, correct me if I'm wrong. But it would have been nice to see it be nominated here because that score was one of the more unique scores of 2016. Lion could have also been nominated here. That had a fantastic score. And also Hell or High Water by rock star Nick Cave. That could have been nominated here as well. That was a very different score than most of the other film scores of 2016 because it was mostly acoustic guitar rather than an orchestra. So yeah, a lot of unfortunate snubs for Best Music. Some good ones like La La Land and Rogue One, but most of the others are just decent or forgettable. For Best Production Design, the BFG, good. I haven't seen Captain America Civil War or Doctor Strange. Like I said before, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, really good. Passengers, alright, I will admit the set was the best technical element of the movie, very impressive. Rogue One, definitely. This is a pretty good lineup. If I had to pick anything that was overlooked, I'd probably say Arrival and La La Land. But otherwise, good list. Best special effects. I have no problem with this list at all. Even though I haven't seen Doctor Strange, I can see why it would be nominated here. And I don't have anything that I would want to take out and replace it with. Some might be upset Kubo and the Two Strings wasn't nominated here, since it did get nominated at the Oscars. Overall, I have no problems with this. Best Screenplay. Now, unlike the Oscars, this combines original and adapted into one category. Arrival, excellent screenplay. The BFG, it's alright. Not necessarily Screenplay of the Year material, but good nonetheless. Haven't seen Deadpool, but I'm sure many people will be happy about that nomination. Doctor Strange, can't comment on that. Hell or High Water, absolutely. That was hands down one of the best screenplays of 2016. If that had not been nominated here, I would have been furious. And Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, alright, that's real good. I guess that any snubs here would probably be maybe La La Land. And I'm going to be mentioning La La Land a lot more throughout this video because I'm surprised at how underrepresented it is. Well, then again, La La Land isn't exactly science fiction, fantasy, or horror, or action, but it kind of has elements of fantasy to it. Best Young Actor or Actress. Ruby Barnhill, fantastic performance in the BFG. She and Mark Rylance were an excellent team together in that movie. Julian Dennison, I can't comment because I didn't see Hunt for the Wilder People. My friend Luke saw it and he absolutely loved it, but I sadly never got a chance to see it. I can't comment on Tom Holland in Captain America Civil War, but I know many people loved him and think he's the best Spider-Man yet, better than both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I have seen Tom Holland in other films like The Impossible, In the Heart of the Sea, and The Lost City of Z, and he was really good in those movies, so he has a bright future ahead of him. Louis McDougall was fantastic in A Monster Calls. You know, he gave a performance much more mature than you would expect a child actor to give, but that's what that film needed because I read the book of A Monster Calls before seeing the movie, and it's definitely not a story you typically see in a movie for kids. In fact, A Monster Calls is probably more for adults than kids. There's nothing really inappropriate in it, but it's not the kind of movie you would show to little kids to try and entertain them while you're cooking dinner, because let's just say it's very, very sad throughout the whole movie, but he gives a fantastic performance, and with a performance like that, you know, we'll see what he does next in his career. Neil Seddy, phenomenal in The Jungle Book. And this was a kid with no previous acting experience whatsoever. They picked him out of hundreds of kids from around the world to play Mowgli in The Jungle Book, and he was fantastic. And of course, what many people probably know by now is that The Jungle Book was not shot on location in India, where the story is set. It was actually shot on a soundstage in Los Angeles, and all the trees of the jungle and all the animals were all added in with CGI later. So the fact that he had to interact alone with nothing around him and imagine everything was there and do it successfully, that is natural talent. And Anya Taylor-Joy for The Witch. If she had not been nominated here, I would have been furious because Anya Taylor-Joy in The Witch was so incredible. In fact, I would say she was Oscar-worthy in The Witch. Yes, I'm being serious about that. If I had been a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in the actors branch, I would absolutely have nominated Anya Taylor-Joy alongside other great actresses like Amy Adams for Arrival, Natalie Portman for Jackie, Emma Stone for La La Land. She was as good as all those actresses. And earlier this year, she had another fantastic performance in the movie Split, so she definitely has a bright future ahead of her. And The Witch was one of my top 5 best films of 2016. And that's a lot for me to say because horror is usually one of my least favorite genres. But I heard such great things about The Witch that I had to go see it for myself. And wow, I was just blown away in more ways than I could imagine. And Anya Taylor-Joy, she is a star in the making. You know, she has a very bright future ahead of her, and I just hope that someday she'll win an Oscar. I think someday she will. It's a matter of when, not if. As for snubs, the only real snub I can think of here is probably Asa Butterfield for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I know some people thought his performance was wooden and boring, but having read the book, I honestly think Asa Butterfield captured the character of Jacob perfectly. He was everything that I imagined Jacob to be from reading the book. And Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children was honestly one of my most underrated films of 2016. It did get some good reviews, although some people have really come down hard upon it, which I think is unfair because I think this is one of Tim Burton's best movies in a long time. And even though they made some major changes from the book, which I was skeptical about before going in, it ultimately worked really well. Best Supporting Actor. Chadwick Boseman, I heard he was really good, but I haven't seen him in Captain America Civil War. Dan Fogler, absolutely, he was hilarious as Jacob in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. One of the best characters in that movie. I think my favorite character, actually. John Goodman, oh my god, he was incredible in 10 Cloverfield Lane. Creepy as hell because you had no idea what he was going to do next. Like, every time you saw him on screen, you were just like, ah! because he just was like randomly there and you didn't know what he was going to do. And like many, I would have liked to have seen him get an Oscar nomination for that film because surprisingly, John Goodman has never been nominated for an Oscar ever in his entire career. And this would have been a great film for him to get his first nomination. But, you know, he still has time to get a nomination, but I'm glad he at least got nominated here because 10 Cloverfield Lane, it could have been a very gimmicky film if it did not have a great story and great performances. And that's saying a lot for me because the first Cloverfield film, I hated. I hated the first Cloverfield because the story was boring, the shaky cam gave me a headache, and the characters were not sympathetic at all. But thankfully 10 Cloverfield Lane fixed all those problems and delivered a fantastic film. Diego Luna, really good in Rogue One, although personally I think he's more of a lead than a supporting actor, but sometimes the line between lead and supporting is a very thin one, so Zachary Quinto, excellent in Star Trek Beyond, and Christopher Walken, very good as King Louie in The Jungle Book. Some snubs, probably Bill Murray in The Jungle Book. Even though I loved Christopher Walken as King Louie, my favorite animal character in the live-action Jungle Book was hands down Baloo, voiced by Bill Murray. Like, when I read the casting announcement for Bill Murray back in, like, 2014, I was like, perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Perfect. No one else can play Baloo but Bill Murray. He is perfect for that role. And sure enough, I was right, because Bill Murray not only honors what Phil Harris did for Baloo in the animated Jungle Book from 1967, but he also brought his own unique spin to Baloo in that Bill Murray uniqueness that he has. And he just was absolutely perfect in every single way. And it would have been nice to see him nominated here. It would have been nice to also see Idris Elba here for Star Trek Beyond. He was a fantastic villain. In my opinion, the best villain in the rebooted Star Trek film series. Also, Colin Farrell, it would have been nice to see him in here for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, especially when you find out who his character really is. And if you've seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But other than that, very good list overall. Best Supporting Actress. Now, the Saturn Awards sometimes throw in January movies because the nominations don't come out until late February, which is why you have Betty Buckley in here for Split and Bryce Dallas Howard in here for Gold. Although Gold technically got a limited December release to qualify for the Oscars, but it was both a critical and a financial bomb. I have heard the performances in that movie were good, so that's probably why Bryce Dallas Howard and Matthew McConaughey are nominated, but overall I've heard not too many good things about that movie. But Betty Buckley was fantastic in Split. She was really good as the psychiatrist who is treating James McAvoy's character. She also, interestingly, played the gym teacher in the original 1976 film version of Carrie. And if any theater fans are watching this, then you'll know full well that Betty Buckley was in the original cast of not one, but two iconic Broadway musicals. The first being 1776, and of course the musical Cats, where she played the iconic role of Grisabella, and won a Tony Award for it. Scarlett Johansson, can't comment. Kate McKinnon, I can't comment. Her performance, I know, has been very polarizing. Some people thought she was funny in Ghostbusters, others thought she was awful. Regardless of what you think of her in film, you can't deny that Kate McKinnon is hilarious on television, especially on Saturday Night Live when she plays Hillary Clinton. Just hilarious as hell. Margot Robbie, she was good in Suicide Squad, one of the best things about that movie, but as a whole, the movie itself was just a boring, bloated mess. In fact, Suicide Squad is personally the most boring superhero film I have ever seen. Now, you might be surprised to hear me say that, that I think Suicide Squad is the most boring superhero film I've ever seen, but there are still some other really bad superhero films that I have never seen in my life, like Batman and Robin. Though I'm surprised she's considered supporting, because Harley Quinn is one of the leads of Suicide Squad, so if anything, Margot Robbie, if she were to be nominated, she'd probably be better nominated in lead than supporting. Because Viola Davis, she's more of a supporting role in Suicide Squad, and she was the best thing about that movie. Tilda Swinton, Doctor Strange, didn't see it. As for snubs, some that come to mind are Sofia Boutella for Star Trek Beyond, Lupita Nyong'o for The Jungle Book, Helen Mirren for Eye in the Sky, as well as Allison Janney and Haley Bennett from The Girl on the Train, and Angourie Rice from The Nice Guys. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like The Girl on the Train and felt it was a Gone Girl ripoff, but I personally liked the movie. It wasn't one of the best of the year, but I thought while it had some similarities to Gone Girl, it stood out enough on its own to be a good movie. But even those who didn't like the movie have thought the performances were really good. And Angourie Rice, she gave one of the best breakout performances of the last year in The Nice Guys, but hardly got any recognition for it, and this would have been a great place for her to get recognized either. For Best Actor, a lot of good nominees. The only three I can really comment about are Chris Pine, Chris Pratt, and Mark Rylance, who were all very good in Star Trek Beyond, Passengers, and the BFG. But there's a lot of big snubs in here. Both Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano did not get in here for Swiss Army Man. Like I said before, whether or not you like Swiss Army Man, you can't deny that those performances were incredible, especially Daniel Radcliffe. Yes, his character is a corpse, but as you watch the movie, his character is a lot more integral to the story than you think he might be. In fact, I would say this is Daniel Radcliffe's best performance that he's ever given outside the Harry Potter franchise. A performance I personally thought should have gotten a lot more attention throughout all of awards season. Another big snub is Eddie Redmayne for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I'm very surprised he didn't get in, especially since his co-star Dan Fogler got nominated for Supporting Actor. Ryan Gosling didn't get in here for either The Nice Guys or La La Land. Russell Crowe didn't get in here for The Nice Guys either. Best Actress, this is a very solid lineup. Amy Adams absolutely deserved to be in here for Arrival. Emily Blunt was really good in The Girl on the Train. Even those who didn't like the movie have said her performance was good. Taraji P. Henson, fantastic in Hidden Figures. Felicity Jones, fantastic in Rogue One. Jennifer Lawrence, she was really good in Passengers. I haven't seen Under the Shadow, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, fantastic in 10 Cloverfield Lane. The only performance I can really think of that got snubbed was probably Catherine Waterston for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. But I honestly don't know who I'd take out to replace her with. Alright, Best Director. This does look like a very solid lineup for the most part, although I'm a bit surprised to see Bryan Singer in here for X-Men Apocalypse. Granted, I haven't seen the movie, but X-Men Apocalypse was definitely one of the most polarizing movies of 2016. Some really loved it, some really hated it. So, as a result, I think it would have been better for a director who had made a far more critically acclaimed film to take that last spot. And there are plenty of options you could have put in there. You could have put in Justin Lin for Star Trek Beyond, Damien Chazelle for La La Land, David Mackenzie for Hell or High Water, Gavin Hood for Eye in the Sky. And even though I haven't seen Deadpool, I'm sure a lot of people would have probably liked to see Tim Miller get a nomination there. All right. Best Animated Film. This is a mixed bag. I'm glad to see Finding Dory, Moana, and Zootopia nominated here. I haven't seen Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15, so I can't say anything about it. Sing and Trolls, I know some people really liked Sing, Others thought it was disappointing. Me, I was in the middle. I didn't like the trailers, and the movie was okay. There were some annoying characters that really got on my nerves, like Gunter the pig, really, really annoying character. And it was basically just an animated version of American Idol or The Voice, because it's just basically 2 hours of animals singing pop songs. And Trolls, I thought, was very overrated. There were some good moments. Some of the performances were good. The animation looked good. But the story itself was cliched and predictable, and Justin Timberlake's song Can't Stop the Feeling, while it was okay, it was nothing more than just your generic summer pop song that was played way too much on the radio. I'm honestly stunned that Kubo and the Two Strings didn't get nominated here. That would have been far more deserving than either Sing or Trolls. Or even the two smaller animated films that got nominated at the Oscars. My Life as a Zucchini and The Red Turtle. Granted, I didn't see either of those films, but I've heard nothing but great things about them. They both have very high scores on Rotten Tomatoes, and they're both unique due to the fact that they're not your traditional animated film. Like Kubo and the Two Strings, My Life as a Zucchini is a stop-motion animated film, while The Red Turtle is a hand-drawn animated film made by Studio Ghibli, and it has no dialogue whatsoever. And for it to still get high critical acclaim, that's really saying something. For Best International Film, Elle is the only one I've seen. Very good film, very disturbing though, due to its subject matter, but Isabelle Huppert gives a really great performance in that. I haven't seen any of these other films. I've heard of most of them. I've heard of The Handmaiden. I've heard of The Mermaid. I've heard of Shin Godzilla, and I've heard of Under the Shadow, but I haven't heard of In Order of Disappearance. For Best Independent Film, I've seen Eye in the Sky, La La Land, and Lion, but I haven't seen Hunt for the Wilder People, The Ones Below, or Remember. I've heard of Hunt for the Wilder People. It's a New Zealand film, which I've heard many great things about. I've heard of Remember. That was a film that had Christopher Plummer in it. But I haven't heard of The Ones Below. If there's one film that could have been on here, I'd say Moonlight, because it was one of the best films of 2016, and it was an independent film as well, and of course it won the Oscar for Best Picture. For Best Comic Book Film, I've only seen Suicide Squad, and I only watched Suicide Squad in the week before the Oscars because of its nomination for Best Makeup and Hairstyling, which it won, and I didn't like the movie at all, really. I gave it a 3 out of 10. It's the most boring superhero film I've ever seen. The only saving graces are Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, the best performance in the movie, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Will Smith as Deadshot, and Jared Leto in his very brief screen time as the Joker. I didn't hate Jared Leto as others have, but I certainly didn't love him the same way as others have. Certainly nowhere near as good as Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, that's for sure. For Best Action or Adventure Film, I didn't see Allied or Gold or The Legend of Tarzan, but the others look really good. Hacksaw Ridge definitely deserves to be in here. Hidden Figures, that's not really, it doesn't really have action or adventure in it in the same way as these other films, but given that it's about the 3 African American women who were very crucial in the development of the space program, I can understand it being in here, because without these women, some of our greatest astronauts, like John Glenn, would never have gone up into space, because they were that important to the program. If you haven't seen Hidden Figures, give it a watch. I guarantee you you'll like it. It's not another boring history film that you'll forget after watching it. You'll really remember this one. I didn't see The Magnificent Seven either. I heard that was a really good remake. I just didn't have time to see it, unfortunately. I've heard mixed things about The Legend of Tarzan. The Nice Guys was really good. For Best Fantasy Film, this looks like a very solid lineup. I'm sure some people will not like seeing Ghostbusters being in here. And I haven't seen Ghostbusters, so I can't say. But all the other ones look very solid. I'm very glad to see at least Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children in here. the only nomination that it got. It got robbed in a lot of other categories like Best Costume Design, Best Young Actor, or maybe even Best Actor for Asa Butterfield. He could have been nominated in either of those two categories. Tim Burton for Best Director, who I forgot to mention earlier. And also, another snub for Best Actress I forgot to mention, Eva Green. She was fantastic as the titular character, Miss Peregrine, and it would have been nice to see her nominated as well. I sadly didn't get to see the remake of Pete's Dragon, but I've heard it was really good. But all these others, the BFG, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, The Jungle Book and Monster Calls, very good films. For Best Horror Film, I've only seen The Witch, but it definitely deserves to be in here. I've heard of The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's like an indie horror film. I hear it's pretty good. The Conjuring 2, I hear, is just as good as the first one. Haven't heard of Demon. I've heard great things about Don't Breathe, but I didn't get a chance to see it. I haven't seen Ouija Origin of Evil or its predecessor, but I've heard that the sequel is much better than the first one, mainly because of the director. And I've heard of Train to Busan. It's like a South Korean zombie film. Apparently it's going to get an English language remake. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's officially true, but I've heard a great rumor about that. I'm trying to think of any, and since I don't watch too many horror films, I can't really think of any that were truly snubbed here. So if anyone wants to write anything in the comments section about horror films you feel were snubbed, please do. For Best Thriller Film, I didn't like The Accountant as much as other people did. I know a lot of people feel it was one of the more underrated films of 2016, and many people were upset that it got as low of a Rotten Tomatoes score as it did, like a 54% or something like that, and they feel it should have been much higher. I didn't hate the movie, but there were several parts of it that left me bored, although Ben Affleck, in my opinion, gave one of the best performances of his career in that film. And he certainly gave a very interesting portrayal of a person with autism. Certainly a much better portrayal than the offensive portrayal of a kid with autism in the horror film The Darkness. And if you've seen my worst films of 2016 video, then you'll know how I feel about The Darkness. The Girl on the Train, like I said before, highly underrated in my opinion, and I think it has enough elements to stand on its own without being a complete Gone Girl ripoff. Hell or High Water, easily one of the best films of 2016. Didn't see Jason Bourne. The Shallows, very surprising film, admittedly, when I first heard about it, and the fact that Blake Lively was in it, I thought, oh god, this is just going to be a summer cash grab that's going to get destroyed by critics. Because Blake Lively hasn't really been in a lot of great films. Most people still remember her from Gossip Girl, which, let's be honest, was just made for teenage girls. But I was surprised at the great reviews it started getting, particularly for her performance, so I checked it out for myself. And yeah, she was great. And I'm also surprised she didn't get a Best Actress nomination either. That was really surprising. Split was really good, definitely a return to form for M. Night Shyamalan, and he's actually going to be making a sequel to this. I'm not going to go into too much detail because that would involve giving away spoilers of the movie, and if you have seen Split, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about and what this sequel will entail, so I'm not going to say anything more about it. And 10 Cloverfield Lane, excellent, deserves to be in there. Jason Bourne was the only one I did not see. I've heard mixed things about it. I have to really catch up on the Bourne franchise. It's been a while since I've seen them. And then finally, Best Science Fiction Film. Now, this is definitely an interesting category. Arrival absolutely deserves to be in here. Independence Day Resurgence. Now, admittedly, I didn't hate that movie as much as other people did. In fact, I consider it a guilty pleasure. But did it deserve to be nominated here? Hell no. As much of a guilty pleasure as it was for me, it by no means was one of the best science fiction films of 2016. Not by a long shot. Midnight Special, that movie was very good. Also one of the most underrated movies of 2016. Not by critics. Critics really loved Midnight Special, but unfortunately audiences didn't really pay attention to it. And they should have, because it's a very unique science fiction film about this boy with superpowers, and his parents have to get him to this safe location before a religious cult and the government catch up with them, because they both want this kid for his powers. And actually, the main child actor in the film, Jaden Lieberer, he's actually going to be in the upcoming remake of It that comes out this fall. And the rest of the cast in that movie is great too, such as Michael Shannon, Kirsten Dunst, Adam Driver, Sam Shepard, Joel Edgerton. You know, Jeff Nichols knows how to put a great cast in his film. I didn't hate Passengers like other people did. It was a good it's a good like matinee rental movie, but I don't know if it necessarily deserved to be nominated here. Rogue One, absolutely. Star Trek Beyond, absolutely. I guess this goes to show how weak of a year 2016 was for science fiction films, because, yeah, some great nominees here, but some very questionable ones as well, but that always seems to be the case with the Saturn Awards, because last year one of their nominees for Best Science Fiction Film was Terminator Genisys. I didn't see that film, but almost everyone I know who's seen it has said it was awful and pointless and didn't even need to be made at all. So that's all I really have to say about the Saturn Awards. Please let me know in the comment section below what you think of the nominees. What are you happy for? What are you mad about in terms of what got nominated? What do you think was snubbed and should have been nominated? Let me know, and please subscribe to my channel so you can get more of my new videos as soon as they're uploaded. And check back in the coming weeks for more Saturn Awards related coverage, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!